Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about Resident Evil Afterlife, the fourth entry in the Resident Evil film series from 2010. And this film begins a year after the events of the previous film, Extinction, as Alice Milla Jovovich leads her army of clones in an assault on the headquarters of the Umbrella Corporation. Of all of the Umbrella Corporation employees, all those dastardly people, only Alice's nemesis Albert Wesker escapes the onslaught, and he detonates the base on his way out, killing all of the clones. However, the original Alice manages to get onto his escape vehicle and attempts to kill him, but when she does so, Wesker injects her with a counter-virus, which removes her superhuman strength, speed, and psychic abilities. Our heroine seems doomed. Fortunately, before Wesker can finish her off, the plane crashes. Another 6 months later, Alice, who appears to be the only survivor of the crash, spoiler, no she isn't, travels to Alaska. She's tracing broadcasts from a purported safe haven named Arcadia. However, instead of that, she finds only a huge field full of abandoned planes and a feral Claire Redfield, who was last seen at the end of the previous film in the Nevada desert. Alice knocks Claire out and removes a spider-like device from her chest, which pacifies her and makes her not hostile anymore. You may be expecting this device to play a significant role in the plot. It doesn't. It's set up for the next film. The movie then moves location again as Alice and Claire travel to Los Angeles, where they find a group of survivors living in a prison that is surrounded by thousands of undead. There, they learn that Arcadia is not a fixed place, but a cargo tanker that travels the coastline. Conveniently, it's in LA Harbour right now. And so Alice, Claire, and their new allies have to put together a plan to escape the prison and reach Arcadia before the surrounding legions of undead can find and devour them. But even if they succeed in this plan, is Arcadia the safe haven it purports to be? So, perhaps because I was getting a little bit smarter, or perhaps because this film was released in 3D, I didn't see Resident Evil Afterlife at the cinemas. I did eventually see it, of course, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking about it here, but I did so on a safely two-dimensional television screen, and then I picked it up on DVD. Now, this is not a great film, and the end is really rather goofy, but it does land some of the important fundamentals for a movie of this kind, like an action horror film. So let's talk about, what it does well, how it handles them, and, since this is me, let's also talk about places where it does make mistakes, because, there are some. First of all, this film mostly does a good job of working with a very large cast of characters, many of whom it needs to introduce. The dual exceptions are sadly both right at the start of the film. The end of Extinction, the previous film, introduced the fact that there was an army of Alice clones. Now, the filmmakers either never really had a plan for what to do with those clones, or they abandoned those plans, because the whole host are killed off in the opening scene. And look, it's a decent action sequence, but it does rather undermine the grand reveal they got at the end of Extinction. I have an army of clones and I'm coming to get you. Oh, they're all dead. Then we have Claire Redfield's reintroduction, which seems to exist largely because the Alaska scenes look really cool and they wanted to put them in the film's trailers. The whole sequence could easily have been removed. You could have just had Claire take part in the assault on the attack on Umbrella, and then she can be the one who recovers Alice from the crash site. You would have saved 10 minutes, and you could have used those 10 minutes to further build out the numerous new characters. That said, once we do get to the new characters, 20 to 30 minutes into the movie, the script does a good job of giving them a wide variety of personality types and making them distinctive from each other. And, importantly for a film of this kind, it makes them all feel vulnerable to the zombie hordes. You feel like anyone, with the obvious exception of Alice, could die. And that really does help make the many fight scenes engaging and interesting to watch. My second point has a bit of a double meaning, The Walking Dead. First of all, obviously, it's a reference to The Walking Dead TV show, which actually debuted the same year this film came out. Now, The Walking Dead TV show is loosely based on The Walking Dead comic book, and that comic book had, about 2 years before this film came out, wrapped up a lengthy arc involving the survivors being holed up in a prison. Was that storyline an inspiration for the fact that that's where the characters are in this movie? Well, there's honestly no way I can say for sure, but it certainly seems quite possible. Now, to be fair to the movie, a prison is a secure building. It would probably make a defensible location. It's not an unreasonable place to kind of set a movie of this kind. And this movie does develop and use the prison location in a very different way to that of the Walking Dead comics. So even if there was some inspiration at work, it's not like it's outright copying. The second meaning of the term The Walking Dead is the undead menaces themselves. And I thought that this was worth talking about, because after a couple of really rather underwhelming feature monsters in the previous two films, Afterlife offers us a mid-movie menace of the Axeman, a hulking brute of a zombie that, as you might expect, carries a really big axe. And it's a much more effective and intimidating antagonist than Nemesis or the Tyrant were in the previous two films. It's not the movie's big bad, but it feels much more powerful and scary than the big bads of the previous two films. And it's good. It's a good sequence, great action sequence involving them. Probably a real highlight of the film for me. Finally, Afterlife. I've sort of already alluded to this. It was released a year after Avatar launched a, thankfully now over, passion for 3D films in Hollywood. I didn't much like Avatar. I thought it was bloated and tedious, but at least it used its 3D for more than lots of things flying out of the screen toward you. Afterlife, on the other hand, is very heavy on that gimmick. I suspect that's because, firstly, it's the most obvious thing to do with the technology. Hey, have an axe come flying towards you. Hey, have bullets come flying towards you. Hey, have shards of glass come flying towards you. And B, the decision to shoot in 3D was a very late one. And I suspect, this was the easiest way to really emphasize the 3D effects without needing extensive rewrites. It was just, that scene where somebody throws something, let's have them throw it towards the camera. Apparently, the decision to film in 3D added considerable cost and difficulty to the shoot. Does it add anything to justify that money and effort? Well, I didn't watch it in 3D, but no film that I have ever watched in 3D has ever materially improved by its use of that technology, Avatar included, so I feel pretty safe in saying no. I dread the release of Avatar 2 and its sequels because they might reignite the baffling enthusiasm for what I consider to be a pointless gimmick. Fortunately, you can safely watch this movie in 2D on your television screen, and apart from the fact that you can see the kind of 3D gimmickry they were going for, it's pretty minor, and it shouldn't spoil the basic entertainment of what is a pretty solid little action horror movie at the end of the day. So that's Resident Evil Afterlife. If the Resident Evil movies are in your wheelhouse, you should probably enjoy it. Next time, a first for this video series, we're going to look at a non-fiction show, the 1979 nature documentary Life on Earth. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.